Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Ruan and this is the Yorkshire Sew Girl. I am back for part 2 of my Q&A vlog thing, because last time I waited on for that long. I actually think this is going to be 3-parters, if I'm honest. When I think about it, I've just gone down and written down all of the questions and I'm kind of like, the way I rabbit on, there's no way I'm going to get through all these ones that are still left. So this is probably going to be a 3-parter. So stick with me, guys. This might be my last vlog for a few weeks, and the main reason for that is because I am due to go on holiday very soon. It's one of them holidays that's been put off, pushed back, etc. And we've been kind of waiting for them to cancel it again, but they haven't. So if we don't go, we lose the money and the holiday because they haven't cancelled it. So we're just going to see what happens. So you might see loads of me because I've got a week off work and I'm still sat at home. Or you might not see much of me at all because I'm sunning myself somewhere on holiday. So we shall see. So I've just thought I'd explain that now in case there's like complete radio silence from me. And you're like, where's she gone? I'm still here. I might just not be here. So really enjoyed the last vlog that I did with the Q&A series, and I love all the questions. In fact, I still had a bit of a giggle just quickly scribbling them down this morning. Same as part 1. I've not prepped anything. I'm just going to pick questions out. If you can hear rustling, that is one of my cats getting very comfortable in my sewing machine bag. Don't ask. They have cat beds, they have sofas, they have normal beds, but no, he needs to sit in my sewing machine bag. So he'll come up and start meowing me and showing you his bumhole soon probably, but that's my cat for you. Anyway, so yeah, I'm just going to quickly pick some out, rabbit on for a little bit. Let's see if we can get this under 30 minutes. Am I having a laugh? I think I might be, and we'll go from there. So I'll start off with someone who sent me a question on Instagram, and their Instagram handle is Stitch Cast and Sew. So hello. And they asked, what or who? I'm going to be looking down here because I've got questions. I'll be ticking them off as well because I will forget for part 3 and you'll be like, you've already answered this question. What or who inspired my love of sewing? Mine's been a bit of a weird journey, really. I started sewing about 6 or 7 years ago now, and I was one of those people that watched the Sewing Bee and thought, oh, I'd love to do something like that. And my eldest son was about a year and a half at that time, and I was kind of thinking, do you know what, I would really like a hobby, something that I could do at home that I can pick up and put down. And I watched the Sewing Bee and just loved every minute of it and thought this might be my thing. So I had a good look online to see if I could find any sewing classes. At that time there wasn't many YouTube vloggers on sewing and things like that, so it was kind of like you teach yourself type of thing from a manual, or you go to a sewing class. Whereas I think now it's a lot more accessible because people are doing loads of stuff on YouTube and you can kind of get help in hand when you're learning to sew. And I managed to find some classes in Leeds, which is quite localish to me. And yeah, that's how my journey began. But I kind of started hoping that I would just do crafty things. So, you know, making bunting and cushions and stuff like that. It wasn't until I started doing further classes that I found a love of garment making. It was not on my radar at all. I just did a beginner's 6-week course where we made a drawstring bag, etc. And I absolutely loved it. And I still laugh now because you have to take your own sewing machine. Obviously I didn't have one and I didn't want to pay out for one. And Jessica, my sewing teacher, kindly said, well, I've got some that I can lend you if you want. I've said, no, my friend at work, she's got one. I'm going to bring it with me. So I turned up. I could blush thinking about it now. I turned up with one of those mini sewing machines, you know, that you get for a kid. I don't know what I was thinking, man. But my friend at work said, I've got one, I'll bring this in. So I was like, brilliant. So anyway, I'm setting it up because I was one of the first people in there, and then people started coming in and dragging out like massive sewing machines, and I'm like, what am I doing here? So anyway, I got it all set up and I'm sat there and I'm kind of waiting for Jess to start the class. As she starts talking, and telling us everything, how to, you know, load a bobbin and things like that. And I'm like, mine's not working. My machine's not working. So she came over and she's like, let's have a look. Is it something to do with the power cord? And I'm like, what power cord? Didn't have a power cord. So my friend had given me this child sewing machine with no power cord, and I was sat there trying to sew with it. I mean, it's just mortifying when I think about it now. I'm like, oh my God, what was she thought of me? So Jessica went, it's not a problem, I'll go and get one. So she went and got one and brought me a proper sewing machine, and she brought me a bright purple sewing machine from John Lewis, and it was one of their beginner ones for £99. I remember it religiously. And after that 6-week beginner course, I just caught the bug and I went and bought my own one from John Lewis, exactly the same. So it's a manual one where you had to press the button down to make it go back and forwards. And I just remember it turning up and it was mint green and it was just beautiful. But I did have a problem with my foot pedal. It kept catching. And after about 6 months, I just wasn't happy with it, and I contacted John Lewis and said, look, we haven't got any more of them in stock, but you can send it back to us and we'll collect it, and you can put it against any other one you want. And by that point I knew I was going to do this as my hobby. I'd totally caught on to it and I loved every minute of it. So I ended up getting a brother machine. I don't know, it was about £300, but I'd got £100 off it. Do you like how I'm justifying that? That's how I justified it to my husband at the time. Not that I need to ask his permission anyway, but you know what I mean. So yeah, that was how it all began. But I booked onto a sewing course as soon as I'd finished my beginner's one, and I made a button back top, and that was it. Loved it from there. So it's definitely the sewing bee that inspired me. I'm one of those people that but you know, what does it matter really? Because as long as you're doing it, it doesn't matter who inspired you. It's all our own personal journeys, isn't it? So it doesn't matter if it's cliche or if it's not, who cares? As long as you're loving it, that's all that matters. But as I started then sewing, my mum said, oh yeah, I used to make all your stuff when you were little. So what? She said, yeah, but I didn't like doing it. So she's shown me loads of pictures of outfits that she's made me and all sorts of stuff when I was little. But she's definitely more a knitter, my mum, rather than a sewer. In fact, she's just brought a dress around for me to take up for her. So that's how much she's not bothered about doing it. So that's kind of what inspired me to get into it. And I've never looked back all these years later. And I'm lucky enough to be sat here now in my own little sewing room, sewing when I can. So there you go. What shall I do next? Nolene McNamee. Sorry. I'm assuming. McNamee. I'm so sorry. People get my name wrong all the time as well. Toughest project to date. And then, is there anything I've tried and then had to put to one side and come back to? And she kind of talked about how sewing's a roller coaster, and it really is. Toughest project to date. Now that's quite a hard one because I do tend to go with simple-ish patterns because I'm lazy. I don't want to do fastenings and things like that. But my toughest project to date is probably my Oslo coat by Tessuti, and not because of the pattern and everything. I absolutely love it. But just because it was the first coat I'd kind of made on my own and you had to bag it out. I mean, it was great because it's oversized. It's kind of raglan sleeved, it's only got one buttonhole on it, etc. But in terms of construction and the sheer amount of volume of fabric, etc., that was probably one of my toughest projects to date. But I enjoyed every single minute of it. It was tough, but I loved it, every single bit of it. And then to finally turn it all out, bag it all out, and have this beautiful coat that I am in love with was just... it was like magic, basically. Does anybody else think that about bagging it out? It's literally like magic. And you hold your breath while you're pulling it all out, don't you? Please God, please God, please let this be okay. And then suddenly, boom, it's there, transformed in your hands. I love that kind of thing. And have I tried anything and then had to put it to one side and come back to it? Yeah, a lot of times really, but even for simple things. I find that when I'm doing something that's more complicated, I am a lot more focused and I do things step by step and I make sure that they're done well. if I'm doing an easy, quick make, that's when I sometimes make mistakes and I annoy myself. For example, actually, in fact, I've got it here. I will drag it over. I've just started to make a kilo wrap dress. Okay, simple pattern, isn't it? Yeah, people say that they knock it up in no time. This is my CeeLo wrap dress. Even got makeup on it from trying it on yesterday. So it's only partly made. That's the front of it there. These are the sides. So I have done the neckline and I've been binding the armhole. But what I didn't realise is that I'd also cut the notch for the sleeved version. So this is the notch for the sleeved version, and right the way down here is the notch for the sleeveless version. Yeah. So I've made binding with this self-binding, fabric binding, and then I put it all on really accurately. It's all perfect. And then I went to sew the side seams up and I went to put it on and my arms were stuck up like this. Hello, I could just get my arms through. That was about it. I couldn't get them down. I'm like, what have I done wrong there? And then I worked it all out that actually I'd cut 2 notches and one of them was incorrect. This one. So I must go back and write on my pattern piece. It's not this one, you div. It's this one. And if you see, that's a good maybe 2 or 3 inches extra. So I'd be able to put my arms down, wouldn't I? So I had to sit yesterday and unpick. How many lines of stitching would that have been then? Your first one for your binding, flip it over, second one. Why did it feel like there was about 100 lines of stitching? Oh yeah, then because it's obviously small zigzag. Anyway, I had to sit on stretch fabric and unpick both armholes because I've done both armholes then ready to sew up the side seams and unpick it all last night. So this really quick project of mine, it's not a quick project. Sorry, Tigger. Scared the cat. I forgot you were there, mate. Sorry. So, yes, I had to put it to one side yesterday and then I unpicked it at several points during the day until my fingers had cramp from stretching it to try and unpick it. And I was like, ah, by the time I'd finished. So, yes, that is one thing that I've had to do. Right. A lady called Cloggy D on, I think this was a YouTube one, asked, do I have a fabric in my stash that feels too precious to cut into? And she said she has some silk that's older than her 30-year-old son. So what? Now, I don't have anything that old, but I get where you're coming from. I think the longer you hold on to something, the more precious it almost becomes, particularly if it's from, you know, somebody else or someone's giving you it or it's vintage, or I get you. But the other part of me is kind of thinking, why do we have these beautiful things in our stash that we then don't actually wear and let out into the light? I've got one fabric which I've just pulled out now actually when I wrote that question down, which is this one. And this is it's 3 meters of silk icat fabric. Now, my best friend lives in Northern Ireland, and her mum and her parents used to live, well, they all used to live in the Middle East a lot. And my best friend's mum is a sewer herself and just makes stunning things. And I used to love it when I used to go over to her house and I used to be like, please, can I come and have a look in your sewing room? And then she used to open this big massive wardrobe and there was just fabric galore in there. But she picked a lot of fabric up on her travels. So she decided to have a bit of a de-stash and she was doing stalls, and I say she's called Valerie. And Valerie was doing stalls and everything, and she was also trying to sell off some product. And I just fell in love with this. And asked if I could buy this off her. I can't remember now. I mean, it's quite some years ago, so it's when pretty much I first started sewing, and she gave me it, I think. And you know when something's so precious because it's come from so far, and it's, you know, from my best friend's mum, and I just kind of, at first I was going to make cushions out of it, but then, you know, I've got kids. My cushions get ruined. So do you think I need to just wait till the kids move out? I mean, they're only 8 and 5, so it could be a while. I might be like you, Cloggy D, and I'll have this in 30 years, maybe do something with it, I don't know. But it's very narrow, that's how wide it is, but it's just beautiful. I just love everything about it, and it feels so smooth. So yeah, that's my piece of fabric that I feel is just so precious. I just scared to go into it and I don't want to waste it. So that's, yeah, that's my one basically. Okay, tick. I feel like a teacher because I've got a red pen as well. Check me out. Annette Cowburn asked me what my favourite me made is, and also what my worst sewing disaster is. I think my favourite me made is my Oslo coat. It depends how you look at it. I've got favourite makes because I wear them more often, if that makes sense. But my favourite make from an achievement point of view would be my Oslo coat so far. I've been sewing for a number of years, like I said at the beginning, but I haven't been sewing a lot. You know, I was only doing a couple of hours a week, if that, whilst I was doing my lessons. It's only really since lockdown that I've started doing it more often, and really taking it up as a proper hobby. So I think definitely my coat, because I think it was the realisation of actually I can do this on my own if I want to. I don't have to have someone there holding my hand. I can do it. So I think that's probably my favourite me made, because I just love it. And people always go, oh my God, I like your coat. I made it. Yeah. And what was my worst sewing disaster? I've not had any major ones, and I think that's because I play it safe though. I'm worried that I'm going to get to the end of a project and not like it and then be disheartened by it. And I know that's a journey we have to go through as sewers, but I don't want to do it. And that's why I avoid things a lot, because I kind of go safe. So I do need to push myself a little bit more, and I am working on that at the moment. But I'm still avoiding zips. Sorry, don't like them. My worst sewing disaster is, there's a couple of things really. One, I cut out a top in this beautiful white leopard print fabric that I'd got, I think from Material Girl Laura at the time, and I cut it all out, and then I put it away for ages, and I came back to it not realising that I'd cut it out before I'd lost quite a bit of weight. So I was sewing it all up and I'm like, I just don't understand why this isn't fitting me. Yeah, and it took me quite a while to grasp that I was making a pattern that was 3 sizes too big for me. So that's one of my disasters. And the other disaster, which all the girls in my sewing classes would laugh at, and if they would say to you, what's my biggest sewing disaster, they would definitely name this one. And that is, we were making some Hudson pants in our classes. And I mean, when I'm in a social setting, I get distracted. Rowan is easily distracted, and I tend to prefer nattering than actually sewing, and I don't take as much notice as I probably should do. And I had Hudson pants, and I don't even know what seam we were joining up. It must have been a leg seam or something, but basically I sewed the top of my Hudson pants together. And I could not work out what I'd done, and it took us all in the class quite a while to work out that I had actually sewn both my waistbands together. Scare myself sometimes, you know, but that's a fact. I did do it. Faith asked me, what's my favourite part of the sewing process? What my favourite fabric to work with is, and the lovely Sew Amelia also asked me that same question. And if I'm sewing knits, do I prefer my overlocker or sewing machine? So there's 3 questions there. So I'll start with the first one, which is what's my favourite part of the sewing process? And I genuinely think my favourite part of the sewing process is choosing my fabric and patterns. I love the whole Instagram inspiration, looking at patterns, I think because I'm so visual, and buying the fabric and the pattern and trying to make that work in your mind's eye, what you think something could look like. I'm getting better at it. I used to buy a lot of fabric that I just liked, but then afterwards I'm like, I know I love it, but would I actually wear it? And I think sometimes I've been guilty of that, and I'm definitely getting better at that. But I think that's definitely my favourite part of the process. And my other favourite part of the process is the very end, if I love it and I just stand in front of the mirror and I'm like, oh my God, I love this so much. That feeling, it's like euphoria. It's just ooh, it's like a drug. So that's my favourite part of the sewing process. Yeah, favourite fabric to work with. Now that's an interesting one because I haven't worked with an awful lot of different fabrics. I love viscose in how it drapes and the feel on my body, but I'm not a particular fan of sewing with it. I've just made a seersucker dress, so that's my second seersucker, and I loved using that. It did what it was supposed to. It pressed really well. I love that kind of thing, and that's the same, isn't it, with cotton lawn, anything with a cotton base. And also I did a linen viscose as well, and I think they're quite nice because they have the structure of the linen in it, so it kind of does what you want it to do. And I love the feeling of seersucker and linen viscose on my body, and viscose, anything like that, soft and drapey. I'm not a big fan of stiff cottons, if I'm honest. I like a bit of drape, but I do like a bit of structure depending on what the pattern is. Don't just like them all then, Ruan, yeah. And knits, do I prefer using an overlocker or a sewing machine? And that's quite a tricky one actually when I think about it. So I do like to be a very precise sewer. That is because I am a little bit over the top in regards to things. So if you ask my colleagues at work, they know that my standards are so high in regards to particulars. And it's probably a bit of a weakness of mine and a bit of a strength at the same time, but I like things to be right. And I have a bit of an issue if they're not. So I do try to sew as accurately as possible, and sometimes that makes me sew quite slowly, but I'm all right with that. And knits, I find I can get a bit scrappy with. Does that make sense? Because it's just quick and easy. Now, I love my overlocker. I don't know if I could live without it right now, but in regards to knits, I do sew a lot of it up on an overlocker, but I do like to some parts of it sew it on a sewing machine first and then finish the seams off. I'm doing this because my sewing machine's there and my overlocker's here. And then finish my seams off with it, because I do find sometimes with an overlocker it can make things a little bit squiffy. Is that a word? Squiffy. And so, for example, necklines. I mean, I have done necklines straight on an overlocker before, and I've always regretted it. Always. Because I don't like a wonky one, and some of it's up here and some of it's down here. And it's a bit more difficult, isn't it, on your overlocker to gauge the seam width. So, for example, on a neckline, on the kilo wrap dress that I did yesterday, that I started yesterday, I basted the neckline in on my sewing machine to check it was all nice, and then I did it on the overlocker, because if I was to do it on my overlocker and it didn't work out quite right and it wasn't sitting very well, I wouldn't be happy with it, and I couldn't just let that go, and then I'd have to unpick all of the overlocking thread, and I've done enough unpicking for about 6 months yesterday, so that is it. So that's my answer to that one. A bit of both, in all honesty. Okay, Stella Wycherley asked me, this really did make me laugh actually, and there's a reason for it. Have I made any shirts or tops for my husband? And if so, does he beg me to make more? Right, so I love sewing for myself. I am one of those people that doesn't really want to sew for other people, in all honesty. I want it all for myself. It's my hobby. That's what I want to do. But I have made things for other people, and I will continue to do so, but I would say 80% of it's going to be for me. End of story. But I did make my husband a shirt, and that's because in one of my sewing classes we were making a shirt, and you could make a women's one and you could make a men's, and I thought, you know what, I will be real nice to my husband and I will make him a shirt. So I went down to Fabworks in Dewsbury and I bought the most beautiful navy fabric, and then it had little red embroidered stars just every now and again on it. It was delicious fabric, and I did it all with red top stitching. And I mean, it was quite a tough thing to do. Obviously I was doing it in a sewing class, it wasn't too bad, but it was quite a tough project for me at the time. And I made it and I brought it home, and if I can find some photos I'll stick them in somewhere. And my husband was really impressed with it, and he was like, thank you so much. And then he put it on and I like totally took the mickey out of it. He said he looked like Elvis because the collar pieces were so big. laughing at. So he basically put it on and then strutted around the room going, aha, aha, eh, eh. And I was not impressed at the time, as you can imagine. In fact, I think there might have been a few expletives shouted out at that point, because basically I saw it as very ungrateful and that he should wear it no matter what. But he was kind of like, I really don't want to be wearing this anywhere. Please don't make me. So I don't think I want to make him any more shirts. What do you think? I have bought a hoodie pattern for him and the men's Hudson pants. That might be as far as it goes this next winter. Not so sure about that. I'll think about it. Maybe if he's a bit more grateful. But I just think I kind of just want to make them for myself. I'm not so sure men appreciate things quite as much as us women, do they? Particularly the amount of time and effort that's gone into it. I don't think he'd really be that bothered. So, yeah. So no, that's why it made me laugh, because no, he hasn't begged me to make him anymore because I might make him look like Elvis again. Speaking of husbands, someone else asked me a question about my husband. Who was it? Lorianne Payne. Hope I'm saying that right. How did I meet my hubby? How long have I been married? And does he have any hobbies? So that follows on quite well, doesn't it? How I met my husband. Okay. I have a very lovely friend of mine, Susie, who came to work with me when I worked at Fox's Biscuits. And she came from down south up to Pontefract because she'd met her husband and had decided to relocate and move in with him. And we struck up a friendship, and they used to have the best parties. This is before kids people. And they used to have fancy dress parties. I mean, what? I mean, that's my idea of hell right now, but at the time it wasn't. So I went to this fancy dress party dressed as Cleopatra, like you do, obviously, with my hair. It was dark brown at the time. And I met Batman at this party. Again, I'll see if I can find some photos, but it's a long time ago. So Batman met Cleopatra, and that was it, basically. He was also dressed as Slash later on, but that was a very drunken night that I don't remember an awful lot about. So I met my husband at a party through mutual friends. So his close friend, was my friend's husband. So that's really nice, because a lot of the time when you're married to someone, you have to kind of go out with their friends' partners, don't you? But they're not your friend as such, whereas Susie was my friend and Paul was Steve's friend. So it was really nice coming together, really. And my husband lived in the street next to Susie and Paul. So that was nice. And then we started dating. He asked for my phone number. He started messaging me on Facebook at the time, and I remember it was before we did all this sort of stuff, social media and everything, but we had Facebook and we used to spend all night messaging each other on Facebook. But what I liked about him was he would call as well. It was at a time where all people did was text message and stuff because it was all quite new, but he used to ring me. And he was never the runaround kind of guy. He just kind of said, I like you, by the way. Can I take you out? And we went out for a Greek meal in Leeds. And that was the end of that. And now I will have been married for 10 years in September. 10 years. What? I kind of never saw myself as getting married, having kids. I was never really interested. Loved other people's kids, didn't want any of my own. And then I met Steve and it all kind of changed. So yeah, 10 years in September. Does my husband have any hobbies? Now, this is a very good question as well, because my husband gets jealous of the fact that I've got hobbies, so tries to have hobbies of his own, but he gets bored very quickly. So at the moment, his hobby is yoga, swimming and cooking. But any of those could fall on the wayside at any point in time. And if he watches this, which I hope he doesn't, he will probably laugh because I'm not saying anything that he doesn't already know. He keeps trying to find a hobby. He's really quite into the gardening at the moment, which I love because I like a garden to look pretty, but I just don't want to have to do all the maintenance. So that works quite well. So he quite likes that. So he dibbles and dabbles in loads of little different things, and it depends what mood he's in. Whereas I'm consistently a sower, if you know what I mean. So he has several hobbies that he'll just pick and choose from. His other hobby is obviously watching football and drinking beer as well. But, you know, Good on him, really, in a way. Let me take this off so I don't do that again. Right, okay. Lucy Sharp asked, what piece of do I have a piece of fabric that scares me? And also, if I had unlimited funds, where would I buy my fabric from? Now, I do have a bit of fabric that scares me, and I've pulled it out here to show you. And I bought this, I think, from Lulu Designs. I think it was. They had a sale on. And it's this art gallery. It's a viscose something or other, but it's so thin, and it reminds me of the fabric that I've just used, the Lady McElroy fabric, to make the nearly spring dress. But this is it here. And I mean, how beautiful is that? And the idea is I've got a swimming costume in this dark fuchsia pink. And I'm thinking some sort of caftan. Now, it doesn't look as beautiful on there as it actually is in real life. It is so vibrant and beautiful and delicious. And I'm just I'm scared of it. I'm really scared of it. What do I do with it? My problem is I don't want to cut into a beautiful fabric like this if I can make up a version in, you know, fabric I'm not as bothered about. But I mean, look at the little selvage edge and everything. Look, I mean, it's just so cute, isn't it? But I absolutely, oh, it's a rayon, 100% rayon, it says. I am a massive fan of art gallery fabrics. I love everything about their fabrics. The quality is just incredible, and the price is 100% worth it. So if I see anywhere that's got discounts on or a sale, and they sell things like Art Gallery or Atelier Brunette or something like that, that's when I'll buy it. I wouldn't buy it at full price because it's just too expensive, unless it was for me to make for somebody else as a present. So yeah, that's my piece of fabric that's scaring me a little bit at the moment. And I know I need to make something out of it because it'll just be beautiful, but I'm scared to cut into it unless it's a pattern that I've already made and I know I love it. And unlimited funds, where would I buy my fabric from? If I could buy my fabric from anywhere, it would be Spoonflower. Now, if anybody that doesn't know, Spoonflower is a online fabric store, I believe in America. I hope I've got that right. But what I love about Spoonflower is you have loads of designers upload their design onto it, basically. So the variety is vast. I mean, once you go on there, you are not going to come off it, basically. All right, Tig? Yeah, it's all right in his sewing machine basket. Yeah, you can choose any design, basically. So you can look by colour, oh, it's just incredible. Floral, stripes, you name it. I love a bold, bright print. So it's like, it's just beautiful. And then when you've picked your design, you can go and pick what fabric you want it on. So you can have it on linen, jersey, velvet, cotton, seersucker, I mean, you name it, you can have it on everything. So you can go, you know, like say for example, you see something that you love like this. This is the seersucker I've just made a dress out of, and I absolutely love it. It's pink, obviously, and red. But say for example, they'd have that design, and then, you know, sometimes you go, oh, I love that, but God, wouldn't that be amazing in a jersey, and I could make so-and-so pattern. You can just go and get it on jersey. Or some of them you can have printed on wallpaper. But as you can imagine, it's really expensive, quite rightly so, because of what service they're offering, and you've got postage and everything. So if I had unlimited funds, that's probably what I would do. I would go onto Spoonflower and spend all my money. Oh yes, right, so that's that one. I'm going to finish off on just one last one because I've still got loads, so we'll do another part. But you know when I said to you about I can be quite particular about things, and the ladies that I work with think they're really funny. So when I put up a Q&A question thing, my friend Michelle put on there, is there any particular way you should load the dishwasher? And there's a story to be told about that. So basically, at work, my friend Michelle and my friend Kelly, just when they load the dishwasher, it literally sends me over the edge, okay? Everything I do has to be efficient. I can't help it. It is just the way I'm made. Why go from A to B to C when you can go from A to C, right? And when they go, they do it on purpose. I swear to God, they do it on purpose. They go in and they just put stuff everywhere in the dishwasher, right? So that when I go to the dishwasher, I spend 5 minutes reorganising it because I'm like, well, I can get twice as much in this dishwasher. It needs to be efficient. Why would you put that cup there when you could put that one there and get... So they basically sit around the corner and snigger at me because they call it dishwasher Tetris. So my friend Michelle thought it'd be really funny to put my Q&A, is there any particular way to load your dishwasher? And she thought she was incredibly funny. And she might watch this, and she's not funny, that's all I'm going to say. So that's my last question for today, because I'm already on 35 minutes, guys, and I know what's going to happen. My phone's not going to like me. I'm going to have to unload all my apps off my phone for memory purposes, and then try and upload it onto YouTube, and it's going to do my head, and I'm going to go to my husband crying and say, please, can you sort this for me? Because I'm lazy and I can't be asked. So yeah, I'm going to finish it off there. I know I was rabbited on. I was probably talking at 100 miles an hour, but I've still got a lot of questions to get through, you know what I mean? So that'll have to be part 3, and maybe I'll be like all bronzed up next time. Oh, I forgot to say what I'm wearing. I'm wearing a Tessuti Ray top today. Just stand up. Ooh, this is it. And I've made it in this beautiful cotton, embroidered cotton fabric that I was very generously gifted by Fabrics by Sheila. Fabrics by Sheila. I'm not quite sure how to say it, but I'll put a link down below if they've got any more of it. And it's absolutely beautiful, and this pattern is awesome. You can do it with sleeves, cap sleeves, sleeveless. I was going to make loads of these, so I thought I'd just mention that at the end. I hope you're all right, guys. I hope you've all had time to do a bit of sewing. Take care, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Okay, bye.